and welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, COVID, resilience, crisis management, anything that is relatable to those topics, and anything that helps you, your organization, or your community plan for, prepare, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If there is a topic you'd like us to talk about on the show, please feel free, reach out. I can be found very easily on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there, so I'm really easy to find. Or on Voice America, you can go to the homepage for the show. There is a button underneath the graphic that allow you to send me an email, and I respond to everything I get. Longtime listeners and viewers now, you'll know that I spoke at the 2020 BCI Virtual World Conference. And at the time, I said that it would be nice if I could get some of the other speakers from the conference to come on the show and talk about some of what they spoke about there, or share some other insights and their expertise with us. Today is one of those days. I would like to welcome to the show Lynn Hobballah. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And did I say your name right? Hobballah.
Yeah, that's correct,
Oh,
Alex.
good. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to get it first try. um, as I mentioned, you were presenting at the BCI Virtual World Conference, and we've got listeners and viewers literally around the globe. Could you take a minute or two and tell us about yourself, what you do, and how you got into the industry?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lynn Hobballah, as you mentioned. I've been in the industry, oil and gas industry, for the past 15 years. I'm working as a safety professional. And for the past few years, started on the business continuity subject. And I was the BC manager in the organization. I had the opportunity to present at the Business Continuity Institute chapter in the UAE, then invited to the World Conference, which was a really very interactive conference, and there was a lot of engagement from the audience.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad you could share some of your time with us today. And we've got a couple of things we're going to talk about. And our first one is something that I've seen talked about for so long, and different people have different perceptions and ideas about it. And that's embedding business continuity into organizations. How do you define embedding? What is that to you?
It's all about integration. So it's how we integrate business continuity practices and procedures into the organization day-to-day activities. So to maintain a business as usual. So I will talk about a business continuity professional. So if you got this role, it's a new role to you, it's very important to take like the first few weeks, a month, okay, once you start this new role, to understand the company existing processes and procedures, and to build relationship with these functions or the departments, because you need to know how to actually integrate the BC elements in what they do. This can be part of their procedures, this can be part of their meetings. So they might start consider business continuity elements in identifying resources, or whenever they are dealing with vendors. So in the service level agreement, they will have a clause on business continuity. Or if not in the agreement, then in their procedures, they will have a plan B or an alternate vendors in case a disruption happened to vendor A, then they will go with vendor B. But all this consideration should be embedded or integrated in the existing procedures, processes that every function is doing. And it's very important whenever working with all these functions to work closely with the quality assurance and make sure that business continuity is integrated in the existing audit plan or assurance checklist. So in conclusion to this, I think that business continuity should not be seen as a standalone process. It should be an important component of how we do our business, basically.
But how do you go about embedding? Because let's say I'm a director of finance and you're the business continuity representative, and you come up, we need to embed BCP in what you do. First thing out of my mind is, I'm full. I've got enough to do. I can't take on more stuff. So how do you go about one, convincing people that business continuity is important enough to be a part of what they need to do, and maintaining that? How do you decide what needs to be in these different areas? What part of BCP needs to be embedded? How do you go about that whole process?
A very good question. I'm sure every BC professional has faced similar challenges.
Yep.
How to convince people, how to get their buy-in, basically. The key word is awareness, awareness, awareness. So people tend to avoid giving support to business continuity because either they don't know the benefits of embedding business continuity into their processes, or because of you don't know something, you fear it. So you think this is it's gonna backfire at you because it's gonna delay your work, it will have an impact on your schedule, and so on. So it's very important to ensure a successful embedding is to have a proper awareness program. And this should be across the organization. And it should be multiple awareness sessions. And each session should be tailored, targeting certain groups of people. And we're all familiar with the organizational structure pyramid. So you have the pyramid that starts from the top with your senior management. Then you have the managerial or the head of department roles. And then you go to your employees. So this training or awareness session should be tailored to target all these levels. So separate for senior management, you should have a separate discussion. And this is, I'm talking from my experience, how I started an embedded business continuity in our business. So we start discussion with the senior management. And here, as a BC professional, you should be able to convince the senior management of the importance of embedding and provide them with a study of the return on investment. So how an investment in resources, or maybe you go for a software. We know nowadays there are a lot of softwares for the business impact analysis. So there's an investment on that, investment of man hours spent on the business continuity embedding, okay, versus what the benefits of a fast recovery. How business continuity became a prerequisite for many of our clients will not be accepted to be part of the tender unless we present a good business continuity program. So it started to become the focus of our client, or we can say the focus of attention of our key clients. So this discussion should be done by with our senior management. And I say this
is that the starting point? Is that the starting point? Start with executives first and then?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Start from the top in the pyramid with the starting point with our senior management, convince them. After they are convinced, then you get your commitment. Once you have their commitment, you need to ensure you have your BC policy. And your business continuity policy is very important. This is anyway a requirement of the ISO 2301 standard. And once this is done, then I think you can start with that second layer, which is addressing the head of department or the people managerial position. And here is very important part, I would say. We need to shift the responsibility from the business continuity professional, because his or her role is only advisory and provide support. The professional is the subject matter expert, but the business continuity should be owned by every function and department. So as a business continuity professional, you should work with this department to identify champions. We call them business continuity champions. And these champions, they will basically drive the implementation and embedding in their existing processes, because they understand their business and they understand their functional services and activities more than the BC professional. So they would be the ambassador of the business continuity in their area, basically. So
how do you get them on board? Business continuity champion. When I'll use myself as the example again, the director of finance. I don't know what business continuity is. How can I be a champion of something I don't even know?
Absolutely. That's why I said it's very important to get the senior management commitment. So Once you have the BC policy communicated and there is commitment from the senior management, then all the HODs and the people from managerial position, they will give you the buy-in, or they will be ready to give the buy-in, but not yet 100%. Because as we mentioned, they don't know what's business continuity yet. So they still fear it, or there is no much interest. So here we need to arrange for an awareness session. But this awareness sessions should be more detailed. I recommend to start with a workshop. A workshop, like for a few hours, with all the head of the department, and speak to them about business continuity, the importance, and take them throughout the full processes and the professional practices of the Business Continuity Institute, the 6 professional practices. And at the end, provide them the benefits for their function and the benefits for the company. So I'm sure following the workshop, everybody will have the buy-in because they know this will be beneficial for them and will ensure a swift recovery and resumption of their processes. As a result, they will be able to meet their schedule, deadlines, and so on. I'm sure following these sessions, a lot of HODs will still need support, and here, or the BC champions, and here one-to-one sessions can be arranged. You might need to do more than one-to-one session. I have some of the head of department that you mentioned finance, or you mentioned from HR, so they might contact and they say we need further support. And here it's very important as a BC professional, you should be flexible and you should collaborate and you should be flexible with timing, because you need their buy-in. So you need to adjust your schedule or your agenda based on their timing, and not vice versa at the initial stages, definitely. And as
what would you say to those who feel, again, I'll use myself, leading finance, what would you say to those leaders after you've had these information sessions, you've talked with senior management, who might turn around and say, you're just offloading more work to me. Why aren't you're the BCP person, Lynn? Why aren't you doing this? What kind of things would you tell these people or make them become aware of so that my thinking would change so that I can become a champion? What do you say to convince them?
Absolutely. So I think the key word, and here for as in every BC champion would like to see the benefits, how this can have a positive impact on their function. So like we spoke in the workshop, we should show them how this will help you to resume your operation faster following the disruption. So how this will have minimum impact on your resources, as well as minimum impact on your services. So once you present to them the benefits, they will definitely be convinced. And this, from my experience, I got the buy-in on that. So they need to see a study. It's not like just speak to them, and to give them example relevant to their services, basically.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but one point to highlight. I had from experience, like you said, they say, I'm very busy. I can't do that now, so I'm going to delegate it to my subordinate. Mm-hmm. Okay. But it's very important here to have someone as a decision maker to be the BC champion, because it's all about taking decisions to ensure embedding and to take the business continuity to the second level. So here, this is the challenge to sit with the HOD and convince that this role requires someone with experience so they can understand the existing services. It can be done by someone new to the function. They don't know about the processes, the services. So it will be difficult for them to implement.
You bring up
I had these discussions, to be honest.
You bring up an interesting point. If a champion does delegate, would that not help embed and spread the awareness? As long as the decision making is still done by the champion, they can delegate the work to somebody else. Would that not help embed BCM?
It will, absolutely. I say this is on the second level. Once you have built somehow the culture, of the business continuity in the organization, then I think that the delegation can happen. But also at this stage, at the initial stage, if the HRD would like, head of department would like to do delegation, they can, but they need to ensure they selected the right person. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to embed because you need someone that is a decision maker, that can understand the existing processes and the existing procedure of the function. So if they select the right person, that's fine at this stage.
Are there any groups that you should most definitely approach? Are there any groups who you don't need to approach about embedding business continuity, or should everybody be involved? Because I've always looked at IT as, IT tends to focus on the IT disaster recovery, of course, of servers, mainframes, applications, etc. But they're not impervious to not being able to get to the office because of a highway being closed, catching the flu. There are still people issues and access to facility issues and things like that. So who should you approach, and is there anybody you don't need to approach?
To build the business continuity culture, to become an integral part of the way we do our business, everybody should be basically aware, and we should approach regarding business continuity, but on a different scale. So we spoke about senior management, we spoke about the head of department, where we select the BC champions, and the IT function is one of them, and I would like to talk about that in a bit. Also, the general population, all the employees, they should be aware about the roles and responsibility in case of disruption, what should be done. So that's why the BC policy should be communicated to all the employees. And some of these employees, we know all the process of the business impact analysis. So part of the business impact analysis will be identifying your vital personnel. And this is another layer of people where you need to provide them with awareness session. And here, the awareness session will not be done by the BC professional, it should be done by the champion, the BC champion, because these vital personnel, they are vital for their function. And then as a result, they should cascade the awareness to them. So we have the senior management, the BC champion, the vital personnel, and the general population of employees. So all of them, they should be aware with a certain level, depends on their responsibilities.
You mentioned another interesting point there with business impact analysis and things like that. So when do you start embedding business continuity? Is it after you've done an initial BIA risk assessment, you've developed a contingency plan, you've got a crisis management team structure in place, all these other different pieces, evacuation, then start embedding? Or do you start embedding immediately after you have spoken with the executive team? When is the actual starting point? Because I don't want to assume that an organization has no program, because they may have had some sort of a program for many years. It's just never been embedded. So where is the actual starting point?
Okay, if I recall from the BCI like best practice, embedding was the second professional practice. So we're following the steps, the second one. However, yes, ideally, it should start before you do the BIA, when you go into the business analysis, because you need the buy-in, you need them to support, and so on. Like we said, the workshop, the awareness session, the communication, and so on, to get the ball rolling. But embedding is throughout all practices. So I think it should be always there is a refresher when you're doing your stress testing later on for the business continuity plans. There is an element of embedding here, because you are giving them a refresher of the roles and responsibilities. When you're doing verification and all these reviews as well, will have an element of embedding. So I think embedding is throughout the life cycle of the business continuity program. And this is very important. It's not like we've done the awareness session and we're done. No, there's always a refresher. And keep in mind, people change as well, and especially with the pandemic, a lot of people change roles and so on. So definitely here we need to have refresher sessions on that. And this throughout the life cycle.
You brought up another interesting point. People change. So if, using myself again, director of finance, I understand what you're saying and what you want to do, and I've got people in my area working, and then I go off somewhere else to a different role, either internally or externally. How does that embedding carry over to the new person, who
Yeah.
replaces me? Because it was embedded with me, but now I'm out the door.
It's a good question, Alex, and I faced that, and I'll share from my experience. It depends how mature is the VC culture in the organization. Is it with the person, the VC champion, it's still at this stage, or it's already integrated in the existing processes and procedure of the function? So if the person will change, then it shouldn't be an issue because everything is a part of the processes and procedure. But you're still in the stage of developing and like working on the BIAs of the function and working on the embedding and so on. If the person change, then I think you go to almost to square zero. You need to go back and do the education for the new person. With the pandemic, we have changes here and there. At some location, it went very smooth because it was fully embedded. For a small office, I had to reset with the new person, and then I have to take it from the first half, explaining about our policy, about the overall program, and about what's the expectation from this person being the BC champion. And so depends how the business continuity culture is mature. This is, I would say.
Mm. So who owns business continuity if it's embedded in all these different areas and you have all these champions and people delegated to perform certain tasks and things like that, roles and responsibilities? Who actually should own business continuity then if the business continuity person, yourself, is the steward, as you would say, for the whole process?
Definitely, it should be every department and function, they own it, okay? And if I say senior management, I say finance department, IT, safety department, risk department, every department, they own it because they own their own BIA and they need to maintain it and keep it up to date. And the BC professional is there to ensure collaboration and coordination to get things together. But actually every function owns it and should ensure it's maintained and implemented. And here I would say you touched on disaster recovery for the IT. I think for some organization, they see business continuity is with one function, maybe with the business continuity function, or they see it with risk management or with the IT function. But it's a collaboration between all these functions to make it happen, to build this culture. And there is a lot of collaboration should happen between the business continuity professional and the IT function to develop a proper disaster recovery. So from the BIAs, all the critical applications should be given to the IT function. And based on this critical application, they can prepare their disaster recovery. So yes, they rely on the information given by the BC professional, and the BC professional will act as a mediator between IT function and the rest of the business. If they have any question about this application, we can go back and speak to the department and clear this between IT. So definitely the BC professional should play a good role in helping IT function to prepare their disaster, which is eventually for the whole company.
Yeah. You got me thinking about something else with embedding BCM. What are your thoughts with program management offices who have manage all these different programs and projects that are changing applications, developing new systems and services that are impacting contingency plans and BIAs and other different aspects? Is there any way of leveraging that group to proactively identify upcoming changes to BIAs and contingency plans? Because it would seem if you've implemented something, I'll just say January 1st, and all these changes happened, and then BCM or the BCM champion, whoever it is, 6 months to a year later comes along and says, okay, what's changed? It kind of looks as if, wait a minute, why are you so far behind behind things? We changed a year ago. So is there any way of leveraging a PMO office to help embed?
Yeah, definitely, Alex. And depending on the organization and the scale of the organization, either you have the PM to help, or you will have this part of the existing processes. In a sense, it's the BC professional will maintain the schedule to make sure minimum to review the BIA processes once a year, but in case of major changes, then this will be done. So the BC professional will be basically engaged in management meetings and notified of any major changes in the organization services as a whole. But I would say the BC champion will play a good role here because they know what changes happen in their function. So how to capture this? Like I mentioned, the assurance schedule or program should have a BC elements captured there and should ensure verification. So they will ensure at least once a year is done, and also in case of any major change, they should raise it as a result.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes. I know we're over our allotted time, but do you want to, and we have another subject we're going to touch on, but do you want to take a last minute or two with any final thoughts on embedding business continuity? Anything you may not have touched on?
Basically, I just want to re-emphasize on the point. So embedding is never try to create a new process and system for business continuity. So it has to not be seen as a standalone process because it will not progress or it will be forgotten at some point. It has to be embedded or integrated in existing processes. We're talking about the risk matrix, about meetings. So try not to have a separate steering committee for business continuity. Try to have business continuity subject or elements captured in the existing management review meetings. So, and this way it will be integrated. Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of our first segment. We are talking with Lynn Hobballah today, and we were talking about embedding business continuity into the organization. We'll be right back, and we're going to be talking about leadership support and communications during disasters. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Today we are talking with Lynn Hobballah, and in our first segment, we were talking about embedding business continuity into organizations. And in this segment, we're going to talk about leadership support and communications during disruptions. Lynn, changing gears, how does leadership get involved with communications?
I would say they are at the heart of the communication. So I'm going to explain about how the crisis management team or structure is in your organization. And mainly this is most of the oil and gas companies, they follow similar tier structure. So if you're familiar with the 3-tier structure, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or operational, tactical, and strategic. So for every tier, you will have a management team or crisis management team or incident management team. And you will have a leader. And this leader usually will be someone from the leadership. So yes, they are at the heart. They are the final decision maker of what communication should go. But definitely they will consult with the subject matter experts within this management team and definitely with the communication advisor or the head of communication about how to craft these communications. But yes, they are at the heart of every communication.
You mentioned craft communications. I'm curious, is senior leadership the ones who write these? Or is it the crisis management team leader? Or is it a media spokesperson? Or, and lawyers, you can send me the hate mail all you want. Is it the legal team who writes all these, which I don't recommend because they can take forever and write it in a way that nobody understands. So who actually writes the communications?
So we're talking about the internal communication here. So when it comes to the internal communication, it will basically be drafted by the communication team, but definitely with the direction from the leaders about the intent that they're looking for, but definitely to be drafted by the communication team. When it comes to the external communication, definitely here, I think there will be more reviews depending on what communication is being issued, but it's not my area of expertise to comment on that.
Do whether it's internal or external, and regardless of who is responsible to write the communications, do executives have to review it and approve it first? Do they get that actively involved? Because you've got your crisis management team in place for a reason with roles and responsibilities. So if you've got your executive team who have to review every single thing you do before you actually do it, it could actually delay your responses. So should leadership get involved to that level to review everything and kind of give the thumbs up? Yes, you can distribute that internally or externally. Do they get involved on that level?
I would say, yeah, definitely they should, because some of this decision will have an impact on the organization as a whole, where the crisis management team basically will be managing the disruption or the crisis. So they are on the field managing it, where the leadership, they will take decisions. For example, let's talk about the recent pandemic. We had the COVID-19 pandemic, where people had to go work from home. So this has been decided during the incident management discussions. It was recommended by the crisis management team, and based on the plans, this is the best way to do it. To go ask other workers or employees to work from home. But then the final decision maker should be the leader, because this is going to impact the organization as a whole. Basically, it might impact the overall business. So, and the productivity as a result. So that's why final decision maker will be the leader, but the crisis management team will give them advice to be more advisory going forward.
When does not crisis management, sorry, when does leadership get involved with a crisis? Because organizations, even at your own, you will have daily business as usual incidents. I don't want to say that all incidents happen all the time, but you'll have things that occur that are logged with your help desk, and you have someone go and investigate and resolves it a couple of hours later or right away. So under what kind of circumstances do leadership get involved? And when they do get involved, what kind of support should they be giving the crisis management team?
Very good question, actually. So the big question, when they get involved. So if we're in the office and we have a small fire in the mailroom, it's a very small fire. So do we call for the crisis management team to involve our leadership, or how it would be done? So there's a threshold where a leadership will be called to get involved in managing a crisis. And every organization should set this threshold based on a risk matrix. So the risk matrix will define it's a major, medium, depends on the severity scale they have, or minor. And so accordingly, it will be the trigger for the leadership to get involved. So let's say this incident is classified to be a major threshold, then definitely the leadership should be involved. And for example, for business continuity, they should set a threshold. If we had a disruption that may lead to disruption of more than 4 hours of the business, say, then this will trigger leadership involvement. So they should have a documented threshold when the leadership will be involved with crisis, or this would be called the business continuity as a result.
Now, what kind of support do they offer the crisis management team and the CM team leader? Because I've been in situations, and I can guarantee you have as well. You activate the crisis management team, you've got your crisis management team leader, there's roles and responsibilities. Then executives or leadership get involved and they kind of take over. So, if they're supposed to be offering support, rather than taking over, what kind of support should they be offering the crisis management team?
Okay, that's really good. It will be good if it's only like limited between crisis management team and the leadership. You'll find some of the HODs sometimes they want to take over. So it depends where the disruption or crisis is happening. It should be well documented. If you have a thorough plan in place, I will go back to the previous discussion. You have the proper embedding in place. Everybody knows the roles and responsibilities. They were trained, and then also an exercise has been done where they were involved, so they are well aware what's the role and the expectation from them. So I don't think this overlap can happen. So for every company, there is no standard for it here. Ideally, the crisis management team should provide the advisory and the support, and the leader should take the decision. Maybe you'll find some other companies, they have a different setup for that, but this should be well documented in the plans. So this is basically the best way to do it, to document everything and ensure everybody trained in the roles and responsibility and take part of that training in exercising.
So we've got an activated crisis management team and we have the leadership. How do the two stay in sync so that the leadership knows what kind of support to offer the crisis management team? What needs to be in place there? Because otherwise they're two separate groups, the crisis management team and your leadership. And if one needs support from the leadership, there has to be some sort of bridge between them. So how do you keep them involved so that you're getting the support you need from leadership?
Okay, I don't think it should be seen as two separate teams. Okay, it should be, both of them should be under one team called incident management team, business support team, crisis management team. So the leadership will be part of this crisis management team. And then in the crisis management team, you will have your crisis management leader, and then this will be where the leadership presence. And then you have the crisis manager who will provide actual support and managing the crisis on the floor, basically, and coordinating between various parties. And you'll have other members from other functions depending on the disruption or the disaster. So you'll have from the admin, HR, IT, or in there, if it's happening in a building, you have the facility manager, and so on. So this is the way it should be. It shouldn't be seen as a separate team. So basically, the leadership will be part of the crisis management team, and they should be leading basically this team.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify. I wasn't suggesting that leadership was not part of any kind of crisis management. What I was suggesting is you have your crisis management team structure, and off to the side is usually the leadership who are a part of the crisis management, but aren't directly got their fingers into everything, telling everyone what to do. That's the crisis management team leader. So I was wondering, how do you funnel up that information to this other team? But if, as you suggest, they're all a part of crisis management team, and they should be getting the same status updates, I guess, as a way to put
Absolutely.
it, as everybody else when you're having, I'll just say, an hourly phone call. Leadership is a part of that, right?
Sure. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. This is a very good point. So whenever you have any disruption, you should have a proper simultaneous communication, because this is crucial to ensure a proper response. And especially if we are talking about disruption happening in multiple locations. So you're in the headquarters managing this crisis, and then this is impacting site A and site B, and so on. So as a result, the updates should happen simultaneously, and also same key messages should be conveyed. So this is all will be coordinated through the crisis manager, basically, but all will happen through one person to ensure one channel of communication, and it's happening through the leader, the team leader, either the incident management team or the business support team. So it should be channeled through one person, and it should happen simultaneously. This is the best way. So during the COVID disruption, this crisis management team were not able to meet face to face. Usually they meet in one room, okay, in the office, and they manage their crisis, and they contact via phones all the impacted sites to coordinate with the incident management team on that. However, due to COVID, it was not possible. So all was done virtually, obviously, and it was very effective. And to make sure that simultaneous communication is happening, so we used Microsoft Teams. So groups were created there, where all the incident management team from various locations were part of the group. So to be honest, virtually it was easier to communicate simultaneous communication and keep consistent communication because everybody who should know about the updates were on the same group. So it was really helpful. Also, there was like creation of WhatsApp groups as well. All of them were on the same group, so this helped better communication. So felt when crisis managed virtually, it was easier to communicate with various parties than it's done like with the standard setup in the meeting room system.
And you mentioned if everybody is on the call, then everyone's getting the same message at the same time. I guess part of that bonus of having leadership on those calls, whether they be online or a conference bridge, is as a status is being communicated, some of the support leadership can offer is, hey, that status you just got, we'll take that away. The CFO or the CTO or CIO, whatever, will take that away because I have to talk with the president of another financial institution. So I can take that away. And that, even taking that action item takes some of the pressure off the CMT leader who you said, is working on the ground. This one single call can help create a list of action items, but also assign them right away. And by leadership taking some of these, it is taking things away. It's offering support to the rest of the crisis management team because it's something they don't have to focus on.
Absolutely, we felt more, like it was there was more collaboration among the various members. As well, better delegation of responsibilities and visibility. Whereas for some situations, in the normal setup, when this is happening face to face and there's no virtual support, you find some subgroups. So maybe some group they are doing some work, but the actual team, the main crisis management team, they are not aware of what's happening in the background. There is no clear visibility of what's happening. And this has led to multiple communication, different messages spread among our locations. Whereas having this in one platform, virtually, it helped better delegation of responsibilities, as you mentioned.
At the beginning of our talk here, you mentioned the training and awareness for people so they know their roles and responsibilities. I'm wondering, is there a different way of doing that with senior leadership? Because they may, their schedules are so much more difficult to try and get into. So do you have any suggestions on how to go about training and giving the awareness to these people, so that when something does happen, they understand their roles and responsibilities, they understand what the crisis management team leader is going to do and everybody else. Do you have any suggestions on how to get that group up to date and up to speed on things?
Yes, absolutely. So now with the virtual platform, they don't have any excuse. So before it was the challenge to get them in the room and to get them physically, because yes, they engage with client meetings or they have any other priorities. So virtually, I don't think it's going to be a challenge now for them. So they can even log in and join through their mobile phones. So thanks to COVID, I would say it changed our mindset, because before all exercising and stress testing of the plans were done face to face, and this is the way we knew how to do things. But with COVID, we had to change and to adapt to the new normal, and actually it went better. And then yes, virtually there's no excuse. They can join. I can see it should be a challenge now.
We only have 4 minutes left. Do you have any final thoughts on, senior leadership and offering support during disruptions or business continuity in general?
Yeah, there's a few points I would like to highlight. So part of the leadership support is to ensure coordination and collaboration between various department and functions during the crisis. But also they should ensure a swift resumption of operation, but keep due care for the health and safety of the employees. And here, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, for the leadership, they need to look into the well-being of the employees, really the mental health. This should not be forgotten during the crisis, where everybody is focusing on the resuming operation and ensure business as usual while working from home. And there's a big element about employee mental health. So here they should take this into consideration. It should be solution to for the employees to seek in case they require any support when it comes to mental health. So, for example, my company, we're providing a confidential employee assistance program, and this is free of charge for the employees as well their families. So, if in case they are going through any mental health issues related to work or fear of the pandemic or any financial problem, they can seek help free of charge. So, this is really important. And last point I'd like to emphasize is about transparency. Our leaders should be transparent and they should ensure continual communication with the employees and keep them updated. And let's say we have cases happening or like the crisis is escalating, or so they should be transparent and honest so they can build the trust with the employee. So they need really to present the facts to the employees in their communication and trying to hide. And this will play a good role in managing crisis. Basically. So transparency is very important, and taking care of employees' health and safety during the disruption is another point. So these 2 points are very important.
And after a disaster too, offering that same support and level of transparency.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, always, always. But I wanted to highlight during disaster because most of the time our crisis team leadership are very busy in managing the crisis, and they're worried about sometimes the production, to resume fast, and so on. So these 2 points is very important. We need to ensure it's done during the disaster.
Well, great. On that note, we've come to the end of our show. Lynn, thank you very much for your time and expertise today about embedding business continuity and leadership support during disasters. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for this opportunity. It's nice to be with you on this program. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. And I really appreciate all your expertise, and I hope some of our listeners and viewers can take some points away and hopefully build up their own programs.
Hopefully, actually, it's the right time now to take advantage of all the resources and the lessons learned from the pandemic and embed business continuity and build our capabilities in business continuity.
That's right. We have an opportunity right now. So thank you once again. And to everybody listening and watching, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.